The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NBA Big 3 in 30. The 3 biggest stories in the NBA from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NBA Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest stories in the NBA.
The Oklahoma City Thunder have re-signed Chet Holmgren to a max extension.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The news officially broke today from Shams Charania of ESPN. The Thunder have signed Chet Holmgren to a fully guaranteed 5-year max rookie contract extension that could reach $250 million. Obviously, the total, we'll see how it all shakes out, right? The cap increasing, the kind of goals that he has in that contract to kind of escalate it. We'll see what the official number is, but he did sign that max. And the big thing here to note is what we've been talking about regarding him and Jalen Williams this entire offseason. These first maxes, like that's the fun max. That's the no-brainer max. If you have guys the caliber of Chet Holmgren and J-Dub, you don't even consider it. I mean, you just hand it over, and every player signs it, every team issues it, and you move on about your day. The wrinkle here for Oklahoma City is the second apron, is the new CBA, and that's caused a lot of fear-mongering, especially from national folks, about Oklahoma City. Look, is the new CBA restrictive? Absolutely. You can even question why the players agreed to it, because they can call it whatever they want to. Second apron, first apron, it's a hard cap. I mean, it is a hard cap. And the Thunder have 3 very expensive guys now. They've already re-signed Shea to his Supermax. They've re-signed Chet, and then you imagine that J-Dub, of course, is coming down the pipe, and they're going to have 3 guys on a version of a max contract. But if the Thunder can't massage this and figure out how to sustain success, then no team can. Because as I told you before, the issue is not at the top. It's not about Shea taking a pay cut. It's not about Chet taking a pay cut or J-Dub taking a pay cut. It's about what you do past your big 3. So they're going to have their big 3 locked in for the next 5 years. Now, they're going to have to make some concessions. Seems unlikely that Isaiah Hartenstein's on this team past this season. That's where you have to hit on a guy like Thomas Schwarber. You're going to have to continue to hit on these draft picks coming down the road. Because it's not about the top 3 guys and losing those. It's how you replace guys 4 through 18. How do you replace guys 4 through 15? And the Thunder have done a great job so far of drafting cost-controlled talent who can contribute to winning. On last year's 68-win team, a second-round rookie, A.J. Mitchell, was a staple of the Thunder's rotation prior to his toe injury in January. As a rookie, A.J.'s on a contract that tops out at $3 million a year. That's how you keep the band together. That's how you keep all this in motion. And it's not as though they're going to have the same 18 guys every single year. They've done a good job this season of basically having the same roster sans Dylan Jones. But once these extensions kick in, yes, there's going to have to be concessions of like, well, you can't really give Ihart another massive deal. Perhaps you have to make a tough decision on Lou Dort or Alex Caruso. But the Thunder have the security of a guy like Cason Wallace, for example. You can take your pick. This isn't the pod to purse through which one of those 2 guys you'd prefer to let go of. No matter if it's Caruso or Dort, Cason Wallace is in the fold and able to step up and able to fill that void. You're going to have to draft behind Cason Wallace and have a guy ready for Cason Wallace's departure. So there's going to be roster turnover. I'm not going to sell you a bill of goods that there's not going to be ways that Sam Presti has to work his magic in hitting on draft picks and getting in guys who are somewhat undervalued and turn them into contributors with this coaching staff, with this developmental organization. That's going to happen. But fearing the second apron for Oklahoma City is a lot like fearing a shark in Kansas and not the Tornadoes. Look, the way that this comes crashing down for Oklahoma City is if they stop drafting exceptionally well and developing talent on the bottom of this roster. It won't come crashing down because of the second apron. As Sam Presti was, so transparent at his end of season press conference, they won't even hit the repeater number until the next CBA. Because I think that the writing's on the wall that they're probably going to, one side or the other is probably going to opt out as soon as possible in that, 28, 29 summer, opt out of this current CBA. So it's not going to be about the second apron. And they're not going to lose J-Dub. They didn't pick Chet over J-Dub, in my opinion. I mean, they're going to re-sign all three of them. And what's going to test the mettle of this team and what's going to test the sustainability of this team is going to be guys like A.J. Mitchell. It's going to be guys like Nikola Topic and Thomas Schwarber and Cason Wallace. Because if Schwarber is the player that I think he is, I mean, I'm very high on Thomas Schwarber pre-draft. I predicted he'd be drafted to Oklahoma City, and he was. If Thomas Schwarber is as good as I think he is, well, then he's going to pick up where Hartenstein left off. And the names are different, but the caliber of play doesn't really alter. The style of play doesn't really alter. Where you get into trouble is like what happened to Denver. Denver kept their core around. They kept around Jokic, and they kept around Jamal Murray, and they didn't move on from Michael Porter Jr. until this summer. But what changed? Calvin Booth could not at all draft his way out of a paper bag. He could not find talent on the cheap to support those top-end guys. And yet, for back-to-back seasons, they lose in 7 games. And they're on the brink of another West Finals push. They're on the brink of another deep playoff run. And they just fall short despite massive roster limitations because they have their guys at the top. And now they've moved on from one of those three who have underperformed at times to get Cam Johnson on a cheaper contract and allow them to flush out this roster with what they've done this offseason. And that's a team that, heading into the summer, you're looking at it like, man, what's their avenue? What's their path to try to improve this roster? And they made something happen. The Thunder, on the other hand, have the currency of the CBA. And, The Athletic has reported on this, that Sam Presti was heavily involved in the CBA negotiations. No surprise that draft picks are the most meaningful part of basketball now. I'm not going to say that it's more meaningful than a number one option. Clearly, you need to have a Jokic, a Shea, a Giannis, someone like that who can elevate you to a championship squad. You still need the superstar, but what you need along with the superstar is cost-controlled talent, and the Thunder have as many possible bites at the apple to get those cost-controlled talent guys. And they have a proven track record of it. Yes, they've drafted really well, and they hit on J-Dub, and they hit on Chet, and those are guys at the top of their draft classes. But you look up and down this roster, they got Isaiah Joe off the scrap heap, and he really helped them. They got Aaron Wiggins with the 55th overall pick. We made a big deal about last year's 55th overall pick, but historically speaking, 55th overall picks are a footnote in history. And Aaron Wiggins helped you get to where you're at. Jay Will's a second-round guy. Kenrich Williams was a throw-in to the Steven Adams trade, and people just wrote him off immediately, including myself. Just said, he's a throw-in. He'll probably be gone once they continue to churn down this roster. And instead, Kenrich Williams has molded himself into a staple of Thunder culture, into a staple of, what this team's identity is as a locker room presence. A.J. Mitchell, second-round guy. When the draft card got turned in for A.J. Mitchell, many people thought, including myself, that he'd get some time with the Blue. And instead, from night one on until he got hurt, he was a focal point of a 68-win team's rotation.
Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Look, they're saving you money already.
More news comes out as the injury to VJ Edgecombe has now evolved to something slightly more serious.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
At least they weren't just holding him out to hold him out. It appears VJ Edgecombe actually has somewhat of a legitimate injury here and is not expected really to be playing tonight in Las Vegas. What did the Sixers come out with late last night in telling us about VJ Edgecombe?
Yeah, around exactly 9:17, the 76ers came out and said, VJ Edgecombe was evaluated by a physician and has been diagnosed with a left thumb sprain. He will be ruled out for tomorrow night's Summer League game in Vegas. That's tonight's game against the San Antonio Spurs. They said that Edgecombe is participating on on-court workouts during his absence and is working closely with the team's medical staff throughout. He will be reevaluated on Saturday. Saturday is the next time they play. The thing about this, we both said there was two things. We thought that they were just resting, holding him out. He had a little boo-boo, whatever, but they were just holding him out and he would play tonight. But we also said it could either be two things. They were just resting him, or they weren't being as transparent as they should have been. And right about now, you realize that they just weren't being as transparent. And it gets to a point where I think you got to come clean, because if he misses the third game, then people are going to say, well, a bruise on his non-shooting hand, and now it's sprained. And to me, based on all the things that happened in the past, especially with how the Joel Embiid situation went down, other injuries that players had, it's just not a good look. I mean, it's not, and I get it. Some people are going to say it's Summer League. It's Summer League. Who cares? But you don't go from day to day with a bruise on your non-shooting hand to now it's a sprain. You know what I mean? Just like
yes. Keith, I'm going to tell you right now. When you told me about this right before the show started, right before I hit record, I had the vibe of Brian Colangelo telling you that Embiid does not have a meniscus tear, and then like a couple days later, oh no, he's got a meniscus tear. And it's like, wait, what? Huh? And I understand that's not an uncommon injury for athletes to try to play through, but still, no tear, and then there's a tear. That doesn't make any damn sense. And I can't help but think, one of the things we got into yesterday, can't help but think this. You have a culture right now that tells your athletes, you don't got to play. You don't got to play. Like at times when times get tough, you don't got to play. And one of the reasons I was looking forward to a guy like VJ Edgecombe actually being a Sixer, and yes, I'm in the Ace Bailey camp and would have been the better pick, whatever. But that doesn't mean that I think VJ Edgecombe is trash by any means. So one of the things that I liked about him was you bring the maturity in, and you bring a guy that really wants to play the game of basketball, loves the game of basketball. You saw in the one professional game that he's played so far in the Summer League that he's got that snarl about him. He doesn't want to be messed with and all that, but he just loves playing the game. I don't like bringing in a guy, asking him more or less to help overturn your culture, and then starting the same process again with, hey, we're going to say it's this injury, but we're going to hold you out, and now it's this injury. Like, I think that just starts things off on a terrible foot for the 76ers and VJ Edgecombe to say to a guy that you brought in to help change the culture, oh, yeah, you're going to help change the culture, but here's a little bit of that old culture that's going to be hovering over you for at least the Summer League. That to me just really does not sit well.
Yeah. Now, I think that if everything goes well, people are going to forget about this once
Sure.
the season comes along. You know what I mean? If everything goes well. But it just, to me, it's something that just backfires. Like, I just feel like, I get it nowadays with HIPAA laws. You don't want to get the information out there as much. You know what I mean? But at the same time, the lack of transparency is hard for you to get people to trust you at your word. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
this.
Oh, absolutely. Considering the track record.
Yeah, and this is something that's minor. Like, hey, for instance, hey, what happened first game? Hey, my man, you say like he played extremely well. We had an MRI, whatever. He said it's a sprain. He's probably going to be out 4 or 5 days. We'll reevaluate him on Saturday, because it's hard to believe that you thought that he had a contusion, and then all of a sudden you just got an MRI or you just got something yesterday and it said it was a sprain. Like, this is, you guys got 50-something million invested in this guy. It's not like you're going to the clinic, you know what I mean? The free clinic down the street to get him checked out. Like,
right.
You have a medical staff there. You were in the NBA city too. So where they have stuff there, like, you knew this for a couple of days, but you probably was one of those things, either holding off, hoping that it will get better in due time before he can play, or it was just a matter of just, hey, we're just not giving them the information they want. So, like you said, based off of what happened in the past, I hope that this will lead the 76ers to be a little bit more transparent, just because it's a bad look, man. I mean, you go on social media or anywhere and everyone's trolling them like, oh, he's a 76er now, or they're saying, hey, what's up with this team? Why, like, they're questioning the team. Like, can we believe anything you say now? So it's just a bad look. It's just a bad look. Now, again, if everything goes right, people are going to forget about it.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's a bad look. It's also annoying. Like, from someone who still has a lot of 76er fandom in him. Good Lord, man. This sucks. I just want to watch it. I want to watch a guy that the Sixers drafted to be a future cornerstone of this franchise, a number 3 overall. I just want to watch him play basketball. Is that too much to ask, Keith? I just want to watch him play. And if he can't play, tell me he can't play. Don't tell me, oh, it's just a contusion. Don't lead me to believe that he'll be back in, playing in Vegas, which is, again, what he dropped in his post-game press conference after game 1.
Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet right in the 9th inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started.
The Knicks find themselves with a couple roster spots still to fill.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast.
We got a good list of names to go over for potential final roster spot candidates for the Knicks. Could they go after an outside candidate like Malcolm Brogdon, or perhaps Marcus Smart if he gets bought out, Gary Payton II? Or could they bring someone back that's already been on the team, Landry Shamet, DeLon Wright, something like that? Lots to talk about, including some of the cap implications for those of you that are not familiar with what they're able to still do at this point and why it's like such a big deal that they kind of hit this one out of the park, because they don't have too much in the way of financial flexibility left. So we got lots to talk about on today's show. But first, I want to thank you all for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day, whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or taking in the sights and sounds on YouTube. We appreciate you making us part of your daily routine. Make sure you hit that auto download function on your favorite podcast app or the notification bell on YouTube so you never miss an episode. All right, Gavin. So free agent names, there's a lot of them. surprisingly, which is a whole other debate about how this new CBA has just destroyed the NBA middle class and made it so that there are now a large number of talented players, in my opinion, that should be signed already, still available at this stage of free agency, and a lot of contending teams like the Knicks that are kind of like, "Whew, man, we can't mess around. We kind of have to like sign the guy that we want and make sure that that's the guy that we want because we don't get another chance because having used the taxpayer mid-level exception, the Knicks now find themselves hard capped at the second tax apron, much like they were last year, which is going to make the whole process of filling out this roster interesting to say the least, because especially if they get some unfortunate season-ending injuries or something this year, they're pretty much just going to be down a roster spot unless they are able to get an injury exception for certain guys. So anyway, there's a lot of interesting names that are available for the Knicks to potentially go after. I'm curious who sits at the top of your list in terms of guys that the Knicks should be looking to potentially pick up with one of their final 2 roster spots they have to fill.
Yeah, so I had a couple of different guys. The one we've heard in the news a lot recently is Marcus Smart. Malcolm Brogdon is someone I'm always fond of. Gary Payton II, we heard earlier in free agency. And then honestly, any one of the 3 guys, PJ Tucker, Landry Shamet, DeLon Wright, who were part of this team last year, I would be open to varying degrees. But let's start with the new guys first. Marcus Smart has been the name du jour, 6'3" combo guard, 31 years old, 9 points, 3 assists, 2 rebounds, 39% from the field, 35% from 3, 76% shooting last season. He still needs to be bought out by the Wizards. It feels like a lot of people are treating that as a foregone conclusion, given that they're currently 2 over the roster limit and just traded for Malachi Branham, old Knicks draft name, and Blake Wesley from the Spurs. Presumably they want to keep both those guys. If not sure why they would have traded for both of them outside of maybe some cap relief. And maybe still see Marcus Smart as a positive veteran presence. He is just like a less than a year removed from essentially being cap dumped by the Memphis Grizzlies. He's looked largely out of shape since leaving the Celtics. It seems like Brad Stevens knew. I mean, obviously the upside was bringing Kristaps Porzingis and getting multiple picks for it too. But it seems like Brad Stevens knew what he was doing moving on from him. Just has not been the same guy the last 2 years, dealing with a lot of injuries, not quite as explosive. We did both see him, Alex, absolutely torch the Knicks in, if I'm remembering correctly, I want to say a February, maybe early March basketball game where it got to a point where Washington just took him out of the game. Is like, dude, you're messing with the tank. So clearly some upside there. High level competitor. Still, I would say on his best nights, quite a good defender. Going to be would be interesting just because, and really, like, I think the key point with all these guys, there's not really minutes available for the Knicks right now, which is why I think it's probably more likely at the end of the day they get someone closer to the back of this list versus Smart or Brogdon, who I think would want a guaranteed role. But those 2 are clearly the biggest names.
Yeah, and I mean, I love him fit wise. Like, I think the nice thing about what you mentioned about, like, oh, has he been in shape or is he too injury prone now or whatever, is that it's pretty low risk proposition at the end of the day. I mean, I know that I just got done talking about how, like, the Knicks kind of have to hit this one if they want to get a contributor because they have, depending on where I read it from now, I think that because of the deal that Yabusele wound up taking, he took a little less than the max of the taxpayers mid-level exception. I think, depending on who you read, it gives the Knicks 2 full veteran spots that they can give out versus having to use a second round exception to sign someone, which would pretty much, I think, mean either Najee or Diawara for them because Evan McCullough doesn't count anymore because he's technically already signed 1 contract, his 2-way deal. So it would probably be either Diawara or James Najee that they got in the cat deal that would have had to have filled that 14th spot before. But as it stands now, I think they're able to sign 2 veteran free agents and have both of them. So if Smart is an option and they can do it, I think they have to. I mean, the cool thing about him is that, I mean, one, he's only a few years removed from a Defensive Player of the Year campaign. which I mean feels really far away, but it was only 21 to 22. It's not that long ago, all things considered. And then the other thing is like, I think what appeals to me most about him is that he has ball handling ability, and can pass the ball, can handle it like off the bench, which I think would be beneficial for the Knicks, especially like if you get a twosome of him and Clarkson out there and Deuce. If you can have those three out there off the bench, I think that's pretty freaking dangerous, especially when you consider that Smart has consistently shown throughout his career that he can guard up like many positions. Like he can guard up to 4s and 5s sometimes. I mean, depending on the guy. I still remember from back in the day, I mean, how frustrating it was to see that he could get matched up with like Porzingis, for example, and get Porzingis off his spot and, put up good defense on him. And it's sort of a very like Drew Holiday type quality to how he defends at his best, where no matter who he switched on to, like, you're not going to fully lose the possession if he's on pretty much anyone on the floor, and he can adapt and defend different ways. And then obviously the intensity is good. It was again another thing that just made him horrifically annoying as a Knicks fan for years, was having him on the other side on the Celtics and having to deal with all that entailed. But yeah, now at 31 years old, I mean, look, it's possible. Again, this is like sort of like a version of what we talked about with Jordan Clarkson. Also, like you can look at him and go, yeah, all right. I mean, he was on the like Grizzlies team where everything went wrong. And then he was on a Washington, it got dumped to Washington this year to a team that had nothing to play for. It's like, maybe that has a little something to do with what his conditioning was like, what his effort level was like, all that stuff. If he's able to reclaim even like 80% of defensive player of the year Marcus Smart from 3-4 years ago, you're looking at one of the biggest coups of the offseason, much in the same vein as if Jordan Clarkson is able to find 6th man of the year Jordan Clarkson, you're also looking at another huge steal by the Knicks this offseason. So first he has to get bought out, obviously, but if that ends up happening and if the Knicks end up getting him, I think it has potential to be a really, really good signing. And if it doesn't work out, I certainly would not fault them for trying, because I think that he's probably the most appealing guy to me of those available at this point for them to potentially pick up.
Yeah, and I think Malcolm Brogdon rather is the other obvious name in there. 6'4" combo guard, 32 years old. Longtime listeners of this podcast will know he's been the apple of my eye for a couple of years. Alex, I think the same could be said for you. In Portland last year, 13-4-4, 43% from the field, just 29% from three, 88% from the line. I'm going to choose to believe that 29% from three is an outlier, similar to what we saw from DeLon Wright in Milwaukee, where he was just terrible shooting the ball in a relatively small sample size. He's a career 39% shooter from three on 4 attempts per game. Heady guard, not very good defensively, but just the fact of like how, like at his size with his shooting, that he could be used off ball. I think in some ways him next to Brunson is a little bit more viable than Clarkson next to Brunson. I would probably still lean Deuce over him, just because despite the fact that Brogdon is 2-3 inches taller, Deuce is just clearly a better defender at this point. And again, it kind of goes back to the argument of why you might just want PJ Tucker to get this role, and something we can talk about more in depth next segment. But like, none of these guys are guaranteed minutes. And it is why I struggle to see a world where either of them would be particularly inclined to coming to the Knicks. But I think there's a case for Brogdon over Smart, though, to your point. When you are so offensively focused already in terms of the guys who are going to be in the rotation, what their strengths are, there is a case for just bringing in the best defender possible. And as we go through this list, people are going to see there are not really a lot of wings that fit that category. The best you're going to get is a bigger guard who can hold up to some extent, whether it's Shamet, whether it's bring back an old friend in DeLon Wright. So in that sense, someone like Marcus Smart, who, to your point, who can guard up a little bit, is interesting. Though I love the idea of Brogdon shooting, and also his ability to just like put his head down and attack gaps, playing off of Jalen Brunson. He was, or at least early in his career, one of the best drivers in the NBA.